address. So that connects it up and at least makes it an element in a model that's worth exploring or examining. And that's what I did. That's what this study is about. We have 223 rulings from 1975 to 2008 that involve just state court review of arbitration awards. Now, parenthetically, understand that 90% of all the litigation, civil litigation in this country occurs at the state level, not the federal level, and that almost 90% of state courts judges face elections. The other 11% are appointed. The difference, and so when we look at the 89% that are elected, the question that we're asking is how many are elected in a partisan election? And I'm looking at partisan election because qualitatively these elections appear to be very differently than the nonpartisan election. The nonpartisan election typically talks about qualifications. Been a lawyer for X number of years, been a judge, lived in the community. The partisan election has a much more issue-oriented message, a very different message. And my time is almost up, and the statistics are short and easy to understand. But let me just take a moment to say that in the past 10 years, state bar associations and judicial commissions have taken actions against judges who, for example, take issue positions in a campaign. In so many words, just to illustrate one out of Georgia, you had a judge who said, when he was running for a Supreme Court position, he said, "I have never reversed a rape conviction." And that may be true. The issue isn't, is it true or not? The issue is, are you in effect prejudging all other cases that are coming before you? And the state judicial associations and ethics bodies have basically struck out in their ability to silence judicial candidates who are staking out a position. Well, now we're looking at, there are 7 states that use partisan judicial elections for every level, trial, appellate, and Supreme Court. They are Alabama, Illinois, Louisiana, New Mexico, Pennsylvania, Texas, and West Virginia. 5 more use partisan elections for the trial level, and then as you go higher up in the system, the typical mode is the governor is going to select from a list that's generated by a neutral commission. The remaining states select state judges through a nonpartisan election or by some sort of commission appointment process. And I'll take your hands in just a moment. Here's what we're looking at. To put this in context, we're asking a simple question. When the employee has been required to arbitrate his or her claim, and the employer has challenged that, and it has gone to court, who wins at the trial level? All right? Now, at the trial level, when the judges are appointed or they're elected in a nonpartisan campaign, you have almost a 50-50 outcome. The employee wins 52.7%, employer wins 47.3%. When you have an outcome decided by a judge who was elected in a partisan election, employees fare much worse. They prevail in 32% of the cases, and if you compare the 32% to the 52% here, it turns out that is statistically significant at a 0.05 level. It is an exceedingly small sample. So it's simply preliminary evidence that there could be something at work here. There are numerous limitations to this study, but let me just point out 2 or 3. I have no evidence that any employer donated to any of these judges. I have no idea. A second limitation is, and it's something that I would want to test more thoroughly, it could very well be that the partisan judge is deciding not because of a particular campaign contribution, but because they're Republican or Democrat. There's an ideological prism that's leading to the outcome. It's not a direct, it's not like the pictures I showed you at the beginning of the talk with Blankenship donating $3 million to a judge, and yet And yet you can't dismiss this when you look at those slides out of Alabama and Illinois and Pennsylvania and others where there are over-the-top outrageous efforts to elect judges and to purchase the influence of a judge. I then looked at the appellate court rulings, and there I did not observe the effect, briefly. When you look at cases decided by appointed judges or nonpartisan judges, employees won in 43% of those cases. When those cases went before partisan judges, elected judges, you had a 50% win rate for employees. This is not a statistically significant difference, but again, it's a small sample. So, overall, I do think I have found suggestive preliminary evidence. It is by no means conclusive. It does beg the question whether this kind of influence can be proven or demonstrated more systematically.